Welcome to Simply Caroline, a podcast dedicated to women empowerment where we will discuss a bunch of different subjects such as life, parenting, love, business, money, relationships, healing, recovery, addiction, entrepreneurship, and so much more. A podcast I'll do my best to keep simple, fun, and relatable and bring you tools to help you better your life. So thank you for being here. And here's your host, myself, Caroline Blanchard. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for being with us again this week. I have such a special, amazing guest today, Kim O'Hara. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I know that you have a busy schedule, and I appreciate so much that you took the time to come and share so much great information with us. So today we're going to talk about a bunch of different things, but amongst all, your book launch that is coming,
Yes.
that just came out. Sorry.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So what's the title of your book, Kim?
It's no longer denying sexual abuse, making the choices that can change your life. And it's written about me coming out of that denial when I was 42 years old and the journey that I've been on for the last 9 years of really healing from that and stepping out and being in a bigger sort of version of myself.
Yes. So, and because it's not only about sexual abuse, you were saying it's about, a bunch of different abuse. And like you said, you just came out at 42. So this is something we can carry for an extremely long time. How?
Oh, buried. Yes, buried. And yes, you're right. I mean, the book applies to anyone who's remembering and facing and understanding any kind of abusive situation that they've been in, whether it's being with someone that's a narcissist, suffering, verbal abuse, suffering mental abuse, suffering, having experienced a rape, any kind of molestation. It really brings you to that place where you realize that you've been your identity of who you are has been greatly altered by these egregious acts, and then you get a chance to reclaim your life and make new choices and like take ownership of your life. And it's just, yeah, the book is coming out. I know that this podcast will come out later in the year, so the book will be well out by then, and we'll be in the middle of a series, a 21-week series, right smack in the middle. That is, you can find that on no longer denying sexualabuse.com.
Yes. And what I like is that you said it right off the bat. This is a mission. So, and the series, I'm going to ask you to talk about it a bit and explain what it is, but the only fee to be allowed to attend the series is get the book, which is
That's right.
absolutely amazing, because usually these type of 21-week series,
Yes.
fees to attend are extremely high. So thank you for
Yes.
doing that.
Yes. And what I ask that people buy my book, which they can buy just once if they come to the whole 21 weeks, or anytime someone attends for the first time, they buy my book, but also they buy the author that's attending's book. So what I've done is I've reached out to 21 women, and this is not a summit. It's not one of those schmaltzy sort of summity things that you do where you're trying to sell and get people's names on a list. This
Mm.
is genuinely me bringing in women who have written books that support whatever the topic is for that week, right? So I believe that abuse affects you financially, it affects you romantically, it affects you spiritually, it affects you physically. And so each week that I talk about like your inner child or having a new voice or, ways that you can, like come into contact with like the denial coming back or any kind of regret or shame you might be feeling, I bring in other women who have written books as well that are also going to offer solutions to those topics. And I think it's just great for us to come together as a community, but also have those books be purchased.
Mm-hmm. Which is totally fair. Totally fair.
Yeah,
That comes to about $25 a week. It's nothing. So,
exactly.
but besides that, so in the series, you're really going to address different subjects that are all related, one way or another, to abuse. And
Right.
you know what? When I was listening to you saying there's different kind of abuse and everything, I think that I just realized that a few years ago when I actually read it and really understood it. Abuse is really can be determined only by the victim,
Yes.
because there's no degree of abuse that is harder than another. When the
Right.
victim is suffering abuse, they suffered abuse, and it's not
Yes.
up to us to
To
quantify,
judge
to judge, quantify, or decide.
or
uh
compare. There's
yeah,
no comparison. I mean, my story, I was just on a call right before this podcast record with one of the women that was going to be part of the series. And she was, she remembered, because the first week is remembering, where we actually remember that it happened. You can either remember and be like, hell no, or you could remember and be like, I'm going to get better. And our story's a little different, because she remembered and said hell no for a while. And I remembered and just dove right in. And does it matter that mine was incest and went on for 8 years to 10 years? Or does it matter that hers was just a one time thing? It does not matter at all, because it affects us on a cellular level, and it gives a message that you're dirty, you're not worthy, you're discardable. And, it then has you feel like you start to attract people that are going to treat you in that way. And it can take a very long time to start to see those patterns. You're a very competent woman. I'm a very competent woman. There's a lot of amazing, competent women out there that are carrying around a secret that they've been abused, and they don't think talking about it matters, but I'm here to tell you it does.
yes. And I was abused the first time when I was 5.
Oh my God. See, I didn't even know that about you.
Yeah.
I just, oh my God.
Yes.
What did you
uh,
do? What did you do? When did you remember?
I never forgot. That was
Okay.
it stayed with me always. But like you just said, and I told my mom at the time, and at the time I think she didn't even understand. I don't know how I did explain it at 5, because for me, I remember one version, but clearly when we're kids, everything is bigger. And but I know what happened. But I mean, when I shared it, I think that my mom blocked it off, and she ended up kicking him out, but for different reasons. And when I spoke with her when I was probably 20ish, because I had a really rough phase, and then it just all surfaced back. I
Mm,
couldn't remember that I ever told her that. And I was just,
it's the
I,
denial,
yeah,
the
I remember the
denial.
color of the couch, where you were sitting, what you were wearing when I told you, so and, it's very weird, because I spoke with other victims, and some people like forgetting completely, having zero recollection, which for me, I could not understand, because I was just like, no, this is probably one of the clearest image that if I
Mm-hmm.
was a painter, I could paint. Um,
Right.
but it goes different ways, and then we deal with it different ways as well.
Yes.
But there's one thing that I find that you're absolutely right, is we do attract after. um, we are a victim, and if
Yes.
it's not addressed, we act as a victim, and we attract other situations, and quite often,
Patterns.
yeah, and we put
Yes.
ourselves into vulnerable places.
Well, we put ourselves into what I like to call like the lowest common denominator, where we start to convince ourselves, like say in a romantic relationship, right? So I've learned as a survivor to speak up about getting my needs met. And I
Mm,
had to learn to stop yelling to do it. And I had to learn to stop throwing things and being angry and screaming, right? I had to learn that the voice that could be heard inside me could be like a quiet voice, and it could be heard in the stillness, right? And so it's taken a while for me to say in like a romantic relationship what my needs and wants are without like minimizing them, right?
mm,
And I would find that I would be with people that would minimize them, right? They'd say I was selfish, or that I didn't have the right to do that. And then I'd start following the pattern of that person and realize they were very similar to my dad, who was my abuser. And so, like, we're still, if we're not careful, attracted to that dysfunction, because that's what we were taught as an early age is love, right? So once I identify that, I have to not beat myself up about, oh, why are you in these types of relationships? I get to then course correct. And that's why I called the book Making the Choices That Can Change Your Life. I get to make a choice. I get to like love romance. I get to be taken care of. I get to have my needs met. I get to be heard. And that's not just in romance. That's in boundaries with your clients. That's having good personal relationships with your friends, how your children talk to you. It goes into all areas of your life.
Wow, it's such a profound answer because you said so much in that answer. It's
Right.
true. It's like you said it in like a couple sentences, but there's so much material
Hmm.
in that
Hmm.
answer because you're
Hmm.
right.
Yeah.
Boundaries. I feel for me, what I've seen, a big common thing is like it's hard to set boundaries because you don't feel worthy of boundaries. So you will take
Right.
whatever is thrown at you and deal with it. And quite often it sends you in chaos. And then I've been used to thriving in chaos my whole life. Like when my
Right. It juices us, right?
yeah, and when my life finally became calm, I was just like, what is that? What
Right.
like
Right.
is
It's
that
true.
silence? Oh my goodness. So what happened for you to if you want to share with us at 42, why at that time? What happened?
I was moving my way towards various parts of recovery. I was in a sister program for alcoholism called Al-Anon, and I was starting to connect with like a higher power, and I was starting to look at like my part and like my divorce from my ex-husband, and I had these little kids, and I started to feel like I wanted to be better, and I woke up from a dream, and the dream, I just knew there was like no denying that this dream was that I had been abused. And I at first wanted to quit, I was like, oh my God, like this is horrible. It's so interesting how you just know. You're just like, oh my God. And I write this in my book, but you talk about your mom sort of acting like or seeming like she didn't remember that conversation. We can bury it so deep, and our family members can bury it so deep. I was partying with my dad in my 20s and my first husband, and we were at a bar and we were all getting drunk. And his girlfriend brought me into a bathroom and she looked at me and she said, has your dad ever abused you? And I was like, what? Like, this feel like it came out of nowhere. And I said, no, like, oh my God, no, because I had just buried it. And she said, because he told me one night that he did. And I decided right then and there, hell no, hell no. And I went back to the bar and drank for the rest of the night with them. And so that just shows the power of when you're not ready, people can tell you, and then you just don't hear it. And I told my mom when I first found out. I waited about a year. I went to therapy. I had an amazing therapist, went through all the tears and all the pain and all the remembering, and called my mom and told her. She claims she never knew.
Yeah, and
I
we
find it hard to believe over that long a period of time, but then I think about who the person was that abused me, and maybe she was sort of charmed or led or tricked. I don't know.
or sometimes you just don't want that to be a reality because it's hurt shattering. It's like your husband, the father of your
Yes.
child. um
Yes.
no one wants to face that situation, and I think it could be a defense mechanism. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I know, I don't pretend that I know if she knew or not, but uh,
Right.
and it's easy for us like sitting on the outside to say something, but I'm not sure when they're on the inside. Like for me, my mom, it took me a while to accept that she didn't remember. I was just like,
Yes.
what? Like if your 5 year
Right.
old tells you that, it should be the most traumatic thing you hear and remember it in details. But
Mhm.
but you have to, accept that everyone deals with situation with their own set of tools and their own past and their own everything. But I want to address one thing though, because to some people that it never happened to, they must think like, how can you forget 8 years?
Yeah. I know. It's pretty it's amazing what we're willing to bury so that we can become successful, so that we can keep moving forward. And I've always been a hyperachiever. I've always been a controller. I have a restless heart. These are the three sort of saboteurs in my life that I'm working with right now from a more evolved level. But when those are out of control and they're not managed and they're trying to run from something, I also drank heavily. I use drugs. That's a great way to mask the pain and not have any memories come up to the surface. If you're stoned long enough, then you're not really going to have any memories. So when I got sober, I had the dream. I started going into therapy. it was almost like I started living my life for the first time. The last 9 years of my life have been so powerful and so profound. I'm so blown away by what I've been able to do in my life and accomplish, and the relationship I now have with my children, and the types of the standards I have for my life. I went from really not even, I was pretty feral, I would say, as a human being. It's shocking that I even had children, but I was pretty feral. And now I would say I'm like a woman who walks with grace and dignity out in the world. And that's not to say I'm not perfect by any means. I mean, I have to be on my guard about like some of these like triggers and stuff that are still there. But I feel like I'm able to now lead other women through their journey because I feel like I'm really on the other side now.
And congratulations.
Thank
Whether
you.
you have a week or a year or 10 years of sobriety, I think that it's a decision that has to be made daily. And
Daily.
I like what you said about, you're not perfect and you still have to look for triggers. For me, it will be 10 years this year, and I still have to
Amazing.
look out for triggers.
That's
And I still
right.
remember, when I was in my first, I don't know, probably month of sobriety, I went to a party and there was someone there. He was like, it was a tarot reader. But anyway, when he saw me there, it was a bachelorette. So for my friend, and I wanted to be supportive. So I went, and he saw me there.
Right.
Like, what are you doing here? I'm like, dude, I'm good. I've been sober for like 3.5 weeks. I got this, and he was just like, no. And then he started making a little lecture, but he relapsed after 21 years. And that was
Wow.
by him being in a car accident, hurting his back so bad, and having to take, well, they gave him pain medicine, painkillers, and he started to get addicted to that. And then it all went downhill from there. So he's like,
Mm.
so you're 3.5 weeks. You're not, he's like, be careful. I'm like, okay. So I ended up coming back home and not going out that night. So who knows, maybe he saved, but he gave me such a great lesson, because he showed me there's no amount of time that is safe.
Right. That's
And
safe. Right. If you put yourself in that situation. Yeah, if
yeah,
you put yourself in, I want to go back for a second. I'm just going to close
yes.
this thing for light. I want to go back for a minute to the like how long you could deny it for, and like for people that are listening that might not have been
Mhm.
abused. I have a client, and she's just become a dear, dear friend. Her name is Sue Pien, and she was in the TV show As We See It on Amazon, and it was like, just part of that whole like award season. And she's just really come out and just been she's an incredible human being as an actress. And she was 5 years sober. She tells this story all the time. She was 5 years sober when she read a script about being abused and knew, first time ever, and came to me and wrote a book because she came to my first book signing. So this book, I'll tell you the history of this book. This book that's coming out this month was already written as a memoir back in 2014. And I went out with the book in 2014 with a publisher, and I just wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to talk about it in the way that I am now. And it also wasn't enough self help. So I had to go through this journey of being a book coach and book coaching all these incredible clients through their books, their self help books, their memoirs, to get to a point where I realized my book isn't a memoir. My book has my story in it, a lot of my story in it, but it needs to be more talking about this journey you're going to take from remembering to understanding to your inner child to understanding your past. And so I took the book back from that publisher,
Hmm.
got the rights back, found a new publisher, and they brought in an editor who made me rewrite 75% of the book. So I just spent the last 6 months deep in this material, reliving a lot of it again. And there were some days where I was like, I can't read this. This is so upsetting to me. Like, I can't read this. This is so upsetting. And then I'd remember why I'm doing it. I have a mission to share my story out into the world to help and heal other women that are still suffering in denial. And then I just keep going.
Congratulations. That's
Thank
like
you.
very generous of you. And I find that, reading other one's story, for me anyway, that's the way I always healed the best
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
can see a human behind it. I can see that now she's better or he's better. But with everything that I've accomplished or overcame, it's always because I found a story that
Yes.
I related to. Because when I fall into the books of theories and techniques and all of this, I do absorb some information, but it's not the same. It's not related. It's not attached to emotions when I read it. So for me, it's just like I'm becoming cold to it. So I know
Right.
the book will help a lot of people. Let's go side subject a little here because you said you also coach people with their book. And I know that, without having done an official social study, I know a lot of people have a book in them and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
what, I would want to share my story. So how do you help those people?
A lot of people want to write a book. They have the dream, they have the desire, and then they think, well, I'll just do it myself and I'll just go write, I'll just do a dump. And I'll just like fill journals or I'll go to a cabin for the weekend and I'll do a book. And a lot of those books never get finished because they have really been done without any kind of structure. They've been done without any kind of like real good outline. There hasn't been like a higher level look at why the book is being written. What's the vision of the book? What's the hook of the book? What are you
Mm,
going to do with that IP? Who's your reader? Like, who are you even writing for? We do books for others. We initially do that for ourselves, but they're really for others. And so when people come to me, I coach them through a lot of those early stages. And then I work with them for 3 drafts of the book. So it's many, many weeks, it's 36 weeks, reading everything they write, editing everything they write, and being like a vision to their voice, right? So I get to know them so intimately that I can tell if their voice is going off track. I can tell if they're hiding something they don't want to talk about. I can tell if they're being too general or too vague. And a lot of times we find things that they didn't even know were buried inside of them that they should be writing the book about. That story inside that comes out, and it's so magical when that happens because that's usually what gets them the biggest success. A publisher, on the Today Show, on the Wall Street Journal Top 10. Lots of accolades for my clients that take that journey with me.
yes, I know well, you didn't publish it, but you coached some very popular books out there. So congratulations for that as well.
Thank you. Thank
I should have
you.
said
Thank you.
congratulations starting the podcast and then you didn't.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I'll
Yeah.
take it. I'll take all of it. I'll take all
No,
of
but
it. But
what you just mentioned there, it goes because like I told you pre-interview, saying you're a book coach, it doesn't it doesn't live up to what you actually do because
yes.
it's very personal, it's very deep, and quite often, like you said, we have it in us, but we don't express it properly, and
Right.
that's wasted talent,
It's
because
wasted talent. It is because I see you in a way that you don't see you, right? Because like you were talking about, like we're on the outside. I'm on the outside, right? But I'm deep into your words. I have been living by the creativity of words since I was 13 years old. And my prior profession at 20 was a filmmaker and a screenwriter. So I literally have spent my entire life in the journey of words with people and working with writing personalities and working with people that like hide their gifts and people that are like egotistical about their gifts. And I'm able to bring all that to the table with a book and coach someone through so that that time, I mean, that's a large investment. You're going to spend money on that investment. You might as well maximize that and publish a book to the best of your abilities.
absolutely. Absolutely. So now I'm very nervous because the French girl in me is like, oh, if she's listening to all my words right now, we're in trouble. So no, because I can't speak with Grammarly. I can write with Grammarly. But just
Right.
joking here. But when is the series officially starting for the book?
Yes, the series starts February 26th and
Okay.
it's every 2 weeks. And that landing page, No More Denying Sexual Abuse, has all of the sessions on it. We post, I think, 3 sessions in advance, and it'll give you who the different authors are, what the subject is, a little bit on the subject. and then you basically sign up, and then you can email proof of purchase of your book. We've kept it very simple. I've done the fancy funnels in my career. I've done all the like big money wasting blitzes and blasts, and this one we're doing super grassroots. And so we're just hoping that the word can be spread on it, and that women can come in and build a community around it. Because, I'm still in process of healing too. And like, I want to be around other women that are shining and growing from their abuse.
Well, do you think you will ever be done with your process?
Probably not. I hope not, because then I'll be dead.
Yeah, exactly. And well, because the way you said it, you said, and I find that I say that often in sobriety. Like when I speak on sobriety, I'll say like, I'm still working on it. It's almost
Oh
like
yeah. I'm a work in
justify that.
progress.
Yeah, we're not perfect. It's not because I'm talking about it that I pretend that I'm perfect,
Not at
but
all.
that's a journey, you know. And I
Yeah.
was just saying that to a friend. Remember, like I remember hearing all those cheesy sayings of like, oh, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so cheesy and annoying, or
Right.
those nice quotes on Facebook, but it is so true.
It's
There's
very
not
true.
it's not where you're going. And with sobriety, with healing, with recovering from abuse,
Mm-hmm.
there's no end destination because you can't erase the past. So it's always going to be something that you carry with you, but you will carry it differently. So it's really the journey.
Right.
So
Right.
it's just funny because I heard you kind of justifying, well, I'm still working on it, but we are all still working on it. And I find that it's such a big strain to be able to actually say it, that
Right.
not there yet because no one's ever going to be there.
No, there's no there there. There's no
Awesome.
there there. Right. And the destiny, and I agree, it is the journey. I mean, sometimes I get caught up in the destination. I want answers. I don't want to sit in the unknown. I want to know what's next. I want to know what the outcome is, but I can guarantee every time I let go of that and I surrender, I am so much more blown away by what comes into my sphere than anything that I and my small-minded mind could have ever come up with.
Beautifully said. I'll ask you one last question. And again,
Sure.
that's totally up to you if you want to answer it or not. But
Sure.
is your dad still alive?
He is not. He died when my daughter was 1 years old, and I'm grateful because I was still in denial, and he might have been asked to babysit.
Okay. Well,
So
then
God stepped in and took care of that.
the universe took care of it. And did you
Yeah.
forget?
I've forgiven him for his fallibility of, I think he was a sick person, but and I don't know enough about what he grew up with. I have some ideas that might have made him, abused people abuse. So really like I've sort of blessed and released him, so I can have a better relationship with men, but I would say that I don't know if it's forgiveness as much as it's just like an acceptance of what it is.
Yeah. And thank you for clarifying that because quite often we're told, like, just forgive the person.
Just
You'll feel bad.
forgive. Yeah. Yeah.
But that too, for me, is another one of those cheesy sayings.
Yeah, exactly.
When
Like
it
I don't know
actually
about how to.
happened. Yeah. When
Right,
it happened
right.
to you, you're like,
Yeah.
um, I think you found the perfect word there, acceptance
Yeah.
and bless and release.
Acceptance.
I love
Yep. And bless release. Yes.
that's going to be
Yes.
my new saying.
Good. Good.
Thank you so much. You're absolutely amazing. I will be on
You.
following that series, and I invite everyone to please go, just sign up for it and follow it. And even if 21 weeks sounds long,
You
just
can come to one at a time. One at a
exact
time. You can come once, you can come 4 times. It doesn't
because they're
matter.
all individual too. You
They're
don't have to have
individual.
been at the one previous to
No.
understand what's going on.
Right.
See,
Yes.
so.
That's true.
So go there. I'm going to let Kim say the link again.
Sure. It's no longer denying sexualabuse.com. And that's where you can find all the sessions of the various authors and subject matters that we're talking about in healing abuse.
Awesome. Kim, thank you so much for being here. And everyone who was here this week, thank you so much. And I will see you next week.
Thank you.